Friends, we are seeing a bee apocalypse happening right now. We've been talking about the lack of insects. We've been talking about this, but I want to give you some of the statistics that the bee farmers and beekeepers associations out there are experiencing, and they are dire. Some beekeepers this season, this past 12 months, depending on how you slice the pie, have seen 80% losses in their beehives. This is a major serious loss for the United States. We're talking about 1.7 million colonies lost in the last year. This is catastrophic. We're going to talk about some of the reasons. The U.S. Department of Agriculture coming out with an alert notice. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the other contributing factors that are happening out there. We're not going to dive into some of the more unverified factors just yet. Some people are speculating about 5G and this and that. I'm not saying that that isn't the case because, quite frankly, people don't really know what's going on. Beekeepers don't know what's going on. The government doesn't know what's going on. They're not saying that they do know. They're saying that they have some clues, some of these contributing factors. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the mites because we got some serious mite problems that are affecting the bees. And they used to be immune based on some of the chemicals that are being used by beekeepers, but apparently the mites have gotten to be immune to the chemicals that are being used. All right, friends, we got a lot to talk about. If you have a garden, this affects you. If you have a beehive, this affects you. If you eat food, this affects you as well. So let's talk about it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and we're covering on this channel things that nobody else is talking about, things that the mainstream media just aren't talking about. We're talking about things to keep you guys ahead of the curve before things happen. And right now we're seeing a catastrophic collapse in the beekeepers across the United States. Like I said, 1.7 million colonies lost, and estimated, because you're like, I don't know how many colonies there are overall. Well, we're looking at approximately a 60% loss nationwide of colonies. So that should give you an idea of how serious this is. 60% of colonies have failed this year. Now, they always kind of experience usually like a 20 to 30% failure rate. And so in like decades past, doom and gloomers would come out and be like, 20, 30% of the colonies are failing. Well, that was kind of par for the course. But now we're seeing 60%. 60% is not sustainable. They're generating new queens out there to start up their own hives, but you just can't deal with 60% losses. And when we start talking about some of these farmers, some of these beekeepers are losing 80% of their hives, it's just impossible for that 20% that you have left to really make up for the losses of the rest of your bees being offed, right? All right, so let's talk about the mite. This is what the U.S. Department of Agriculture has released a alert on. This is the varroa mite, which is not a new mite. It's a devastating parasite that pierces the bodies of bees to drink their blood and nutrients. Now, what is this doing to the bees, and why is this new? Because they have grown a resistance to the commonly used amitraz, a miticide. Yes, that's a word. I didn't come up with it. Miticide. It's something that kills mites. A miticide found in virtually all destroyed colonies. So basically, they're all using amitraz, and the colonies are dying. And apparently, they're finding amitraz immune or resistant mites. The amitraz isn't killing the mites anymore. Now, We had this problem back in 2005 where the previous chemical that was being used stopped working. And that's when they started using amitraz. And amitraz has been relatively good for the last bunch of years, but in the last couple of years, the mites across the United States have developed immunity to it and are now not dying. And these mites are parasites that attack the bees and live on the bees. It's been said that basically, to put it in perspective, imagine a dinner-sized plate on people's chest. That's about a proportionate size of how big the parasite is to a bee. So each bee having a parasite, or in some cases, several of them, feeding off of them is a big deal. It not only is a nuisance to them, not only is it a hindrance to them, but it's actually fatal to them in a lot of cases. So having these mites attacking and stealing a lot of the hard work of these bees for their own existence it makes it so that the hive is far less effective and successful, and it also kills a lot of the workers. And if these things find their way to the queen, they can kill the queen as well. So this devastating parasite has grown immunity to the main chemical that basically everybody uses, and it's just not working anymore. Now, there are some other ways of protecting the bees from this parasite. There are some natural remedies, and there's some other chemicals, but the next most popular chemical formulation, especially I believe it's an organic qualified compound, it can't be used in warm temperatures. It has to be used at cold temperatures on the bees. You have to get it onto them when it's cold, and that takes care of the mites. So you have to be in kind of the northern areas. If you're in the southern areas, it doesn't work. So that's a big problem. There isn't another major chemical that can just be rolled out to replace the amitraz out there. So we got that problem, and the mites themselves can be fatal, but oftentimes are not. But they're biting into these bees, and they bring with them viruses and diseases, and that's what it seems like is really doing the biggest damage to these bees is the viruses that they're contracting because of the attacks of the mites. So we're going to get into kind of the impact that this has to farming, this impact this has to gardening, but 61% of the colonies in Texas died in the last year. So we're talking 60% nationwide, 61% in Texas as a state. We're talking about major numbers across the U.S. It's even impacting California, where it's a really, really big deal because of the agriculture that happens in California. Some of the plants, some of the fruits and vegetables that we're talking about that are impacted by this, carrots need pollination by bees. Onions, blueberries, apples, cucumbers, melons, almonds, and a whole bunch more. But just to give you an idea that without pollination, these fruits and vegetables and nuts do not exist. And so we absolutely need the pollination of the bees. And it's not only hurting wildflowers, it's not only hurting kind of wild stuff, but it's also damaging American agriculture. The food just won't be there, friends, if we can't get those plants pollinated. So we're saying, just to keep this in perspective of things, this is the highest losses that we've seen the beekeepers ever experience, ever since they started tracking these things back in 2010. So since 2010, this is the worst year that it's ever been. And from kind of anecdotal, non-track numbers, this is on par with some of the worst devastation that we've seen to beehives in the history of the United States. And this is going to absolutely impact what people can grow. I don't know about other people out there. I had apple trees that did not get pollinated this year. I can tell because they don't have apples. This is a big problem there. I have a crabapple tree there. I got, these are trees that have produced apples before, but not seeing bees, not seeing insects out there, and this is causing big problems for me, and I know it's causing a lot of problems for a lot of other people out there. I know a number of the people on this channel have already said that they've started hand pollinating because they're just not getting insects into their gardens. The bees are not pollinating things, and so that means you either have to do it yourself or just not have a crop this year. So make sure you understand which of your crops need pollination. Once you understand that, then you also have to watch them to make sure that they're getting pollinated. And if necessary, you need to pollinate it yourself. So be thinking about that. That's one big use for Q-tips out there and little paintbrushes. You may need those like watercolor paintbrushes for the real small stuff. That's important. Make sure you have those tools available. Make sure you're watching your gardens. It's getting late in the year, but a lot of you guys had failed gardens this year, and part of the reason for that was your stuff didn't get pollinated. Now, a lot of other people are having problems of potentially stuff falling out of the sky. That's a whole nother subject there, but bees are definitely not pollinating nearly as much as they did in previous years. And our bees are, are the bee population is going to be sustainable going forward. Not only is this, do we have enough bees, but imagine the beekeepers. The beekeepers are making a lot less money. Are they going to stay in business? A lot of the beekeepers are getting older, and so as they approach retirement years, if they've been devastated this year, are they going to try to rebuild? Are they going to invest in trying to rebuild their beehives and their colonies, or are they just going to give up? Indications are that a lot of these beekeepers are just tired and done with this. Things are not going their way, and instead of trying to figure all this stuff out, it's just easier to quit. And if they quit, this is going to be a bigger and bigger problem for farmers going forward, anyone involved in agriculture, and those with gardens. So, friends, one, if you're looking into getting into a hobby or a side business, beekeeping is definitely a great side business to be in. Two, your garden may not be getting pollinated, or your farm. Three, honey. Honey is like legitimate honey, not sugar that's stuck in to look like honey. We're talking about real honey. That is becoming a lot more scarce right now. We're going to be seeing a shortage of that this year. You can't lose 60% of the hives in the United States and not have a honey shortage. We do import a bunch of honey from other countries. A lot of that has been doctored with sugar or corn syrup. So are you going to get the purity there? That's something to be worried about or thinking about as well. We will be keeping an eye on the honey availability out there in the stores. But if you want honey, you might want to stock up on it now before the shortage really gets going because we're going to be seeing bad numbers out there. All right, friends, let us know what your thoughts are out there. Do you keep bees? If you do, let us know down in the comments down below what you're seeing with your beehives and colonies this year. Are you seeing this same kind of thing? Are you hearing that same kind of thing with other people who are in the business, so to speak? Whether they're hobbyists or whether they are legitimately in business with the beehives. But let us know down in the comments down below. Are you seeing a lack of bees in your garden? Let us know. Make sure you use the word update for all of these things in your comments. But thanks so much for being part of the Watchman community. That's part of the reason why we're kind of seeing this trend out there is because of people just like you letting us know what's going on and what you guys are seeing. We're seeing the broader picture here. It's not just bees, but it's also beehives. One person involved in beekeeping said it's the 5 Ps: parasites, pathogens, pesticides, poor nutrition for the bees and poor management for the beehives. That's what seems to be overall what's impacting these things the most. Of course, the parasites are bringing a lot of the pathogens to the bees, so that's kind of a double whammy. But then poor management also kind of goes along with that. They're dealing with pesticides that are killing the bees. They're being sprayed on crops. So more and more of the bees are being impacted by the pesticides and by the fungicides that people are spraying out there. It's definitely impacting the bees. And with so many farms and others moving to such centralized crops and genetically modified crops, these crops are not necessarily as nutritious to the bees as they used to be. So they're trying to optimize how much corn is on the corn stalk. They're not optimizing that for other things, right? Same thing with other genetically modified stuff, is that it's having unintended consequences. And we're seeing that all across nature right now. All right, friends, thanks so much for joining with us. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.